Hello, and welcome to Wired Differently, Inside the Neurodivergent Mind. I'm your host, Sarah Matskin, and I was diagnosed with ADHD in 2016, and I'm still trying to figure it out, especially what it means to be neurodivergent. As a student and reporter for The Leader, I want to talk to other students about their neurodiverse way of life. Neurodivergence can include, but is not limited to, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and dyspraxia. So let's diverge our way into understanding. I'm sitting here with Emma Moats, who is a sophomore here at Elmhurst. She is majoring in biology. She has ADHD, general anxiety disorder, word retrieval deficit disorder, dyscalculia, symbolic processing disorder, and an auditory processing disorder. Hey! Okay, I'm so excited. Okay, how are you today? I'm good. Okay, so first, you kind of want to talk about, when did you get diagnosed?
Well, it was more my mom that prompted it because I was in 4th grade, so I didn't really see myself struggling. But my mom was at home she's a single mother, so she was at home, and I'm an only child too, so there was a lot more focus on me. And she could tell, even when I was in the 1st grade, she could tell I was kind of struggling with math. And she would bring it up to teachers, and they would just be like, oh, don't worry, sometimes students fall behind, but they'll pick up. And then by 4th grade, she was like, all right, something's wrong. She can't memorize her basic multiplication facts. She can't do basic addition, basic subtraction. Something's got to be going on more than just her fault. This is not her falling behind. This is something's going on. And so thanks to my wonderful and brilliant 4th grade teacher, I was tested.
Did you feel like things changed once you got the IEP?
Yes, I definitely I felt more supported, but I definitely, after that, I started to feel a little more alienated from my classmates because I would have to go to a different teacher for math, and I definitely felt a little more alienated because I was with kids I didn't know, and also because when I did leave, and I came back, kids would always be like, where did you go? Why do you have to leave? Everybody was always asking me what I'm doing, and I didn't really know at the time, how to explain it, and, I just thought something was wrong with me, and so I was embarrassed a lot by it. It got worse when I got my aide. I got an in-class aide that would come and help me, and they would always be like, why is she sitting with you? Why is she helping you? Why are you always with this person? Are you stupid or something? I remember they called me stupid a lot. And it definitely made me feel alienated at points.
Yeah. How did you kind of work through, being picked on or feeling like you, weren't like the other kids?
Getting picked on doesn't really help you very well with your anger. So I do remember I would get really, really frustrated a lot of times. But, tell myself that if I'm getting picked on, those kids are just mean and silly, and they just don't have anything better to do.
Yeah, and as you moved into middle school, did your accommodations, follow you into middle school?
Yeah, they followed me into middle school, and then as the years went up, I think they started to change too, because now once we got into middle school, we were more focused on tests and more focused on getting prepped for standardized tests, which were really hard for me. So they definitely did change, yeah.
Yeah. Why was standardized testing, difficult for you?
I think because I felt so much pressure from them. It was when I would do them, they'd say, all right, class, you've got 20 minutes to do that. And I think I'd probably spend a good half of that being like, oh no, what am I going to do? I've got 20 minutes to get this done. This has 700 pages, which it did not. But in my mind, I was like, there's a million pages I have to get done in this amount of time. And I would just freak. And so I would just, I would go through the test, but I don't even think I would do any of the work. I would just be so freaked that I would just start circling stuff and being like, the answer is C because because I was just so freaked about it.
As you started to apply for colleges or go through that process, I guess how did IEP affect that? Were you worried about your test scores or getting into schools?
Yeah, I was definitely worried about getting into schools, but I was definitely worried just in general. I was worried about being able to get into school. A lot of times I would hear when we would do my evaluation for my IEP, a lot of times I would hear teachers saying like, well, you could try to go to college, but it might be very hard for you, and there might be a good possibility that you don't go, or if you do, you go for like a year or two. So definitely hearing that, and like I know they weren't trying to be mean or anything, and they weren't trying to discourage me from doing it. They were just trying to let me know that it will be hard, and and it's okay if it was hard, and that there are other options, because they also, when I was getting into my senior year, they were starting to be more hands off and say like, you need to find what you're going to do with your life once you're not in school.
Do you want to talk about, I guess, your psych eval your senior year, so you were able to get like accommodations in college?
That was so before I did the psych eval, me and my mom were both very worried about what going to college would mean for me, because I was covered under the IEP, which is only for K through 12, based on a law that one of the presidents made, No Child Left Behind Act. And we knew it didn't follow me into college, so we were really worried. And my mom has a side business. She coaches she coaches women with their finances. So she was at a workshop meeting with a bunch of other ladies who did entrepreneurship, and she met this woman whose son had a disability, and she was talking to her about me and was like, we're really worried about her going off to college. Well, she was really worried about me going off to college without the accommodations, and the woman was like, you should go have her get tested with with a neuropsychologist.
What did like the tests show, I guess, or like what accommodations do you have now, and are those like under the law that you have to get those?
So yeah, those are under the law, because now I have, after doing that and being diagnosed with all those things, it falls under ADA. So the schools legally have to give it to me. So I have double time for tests, and the use of a calculator on tests, and the use of a formula card. Those are so the double time is, I think, kind of a standard, well, not double time, but more time for tests is kind of a standard thing that a lot of kids get that are neurodivergent. So that's really, kind of like a baseline thing. But the use of a calculator is due to my dyscalculia. The way it affects my brain is it makes it hard sometimes for me to do simple calculations, and especially in my head. If I had a sheet of paper, I could do it, but in my head, when we're on a test, I'm like, I don't remember. So I have that, and then the use of a formula card is for my word retrieval deficit disorder and and also my dyscalculia. Because a lot of what I use it for, since I major in biology, is to help me with formulas and to remember what to do when I get to a specific problem that was within whatever we talked about.
Kind of going into your major, like, how did you choose to be a biology major?
I used to want to be a vet for a very, very long time. I wanted to be a vet. But then I learned about what vets do and how they have to do surgery and all this other stuff, and I was like, ooh, I don't know about that. But then once I found out about dinosaurs and other prehistoric things, I was like, give me that. I don't really know what I want to do at this very moment in my life, but I know that science, it really makes me think. It makes me curious. It makes me want to learn more. It makes me, every day that I wake up, I'm like, what am I going to learn tomorrow in class, or what am I going to learn next week in class? And I'm just always ready to learn something new about it, because it's just such an amazing field, and there's so many amazing topics that you can go into it.
Do you feel like when your teachers in high school were like, you won't go to college, like your love of science like was a motivator for you, or like?
I mean, that was what my personal essay was about. It was about pushing through and persevering in adversity, because I mean, there were times when I would be like, maybe they're right, especially my junior year of high school. That was extremely hard. I definitely did start to question whether or not, this was a good idea for me, and whether or not I should actually do this, like come to school and continue learning. But I think I would think about me as a kid and how excited I'd be if every day I could just sit and learn about new topics from science. But also I would think about all the other young neurodivergent kids who have a dream, who are inspired, and they have passion and they have a light, and I just want to show them that they can do it.
Yeah. I think they talked about in your eval about processing and holding information. I guess, do you want to explain how that works, like in the bits of information you can hold, and like how are you able to, I guess, study and memorize things for your major in your class?
Right, so that's one thing that I will say has been a challenge I've learned so far, especially now being in upper level bio. It does get hard sometimes, but I found ways that I could help. Like I do a lot of Quizlets, and I like try to train my brain to like hold in information, because also to, if I don't really care about anything, I find that it tends to flutter away. But if I actually care about it and I actually want to know stuff about it, I have a better time remembering it. And, just being able to, especially since my teacher now this year records her lectures, I can just go back in anytime and watch them to, keep my memory fresh. And that's what I do. I typically watch a lecture at night, or I'd watch a lecture at night, and then I go back to my notes, maybe add something that I didn't hear her say the first time, or add little drawings that I think could help and stuff like that.
How is your brain able to hold information? I think we talked about, or your eval talked about holding these bits of stimulus.
Right, so stimulus is like the things I learned. So I can't do multi-step tasks. So if someone were to tell me, Emma, like, let's go to Jewel and let's get milk, eggs, cookies, cereal, Cheeto Puffs, and they just gave me a huge list, I could remember it, but not every single thing. Sometimes I can hold up to 3 bits of information at a time. So if I were to say, okay, I'm going to go back to the caf, and then I'm going to go back to my room, and then I'm going to go to somewhere else, I can remember that. But after, and like other 3-step tasks, but after that, I can remember some of them, but I can't pull it out sequentially.
How are you able to manage like daily tasks?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I will, be like, what's due today, what's due tomorrow. And, I think homework assignments have always been a struggle for me. I think having any type of planner or something, like even if it's just, I know, people are like, oh, go out and buy those like cute little planners, but you don't even have to get a cutesy little one. You can just use your Notes app. And I think that's been really helpful.
And for your ADHD, are you medicated?
No, I'm not medicated. I guess I'm at a low enough support or whatever. I don't know how to, but I'm guessing that I'm not at enough need for it.
Do you ever think you should be medicated, or do you think you're able to manage?
I don't even know if there was a thing that was like brought up that was like she needs to be medicated.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that it was anybody's choice. I think it was just she seemed like she presents herself well enough that it doesn't seem like it would be needed for her to be medicated, or maybe it would cause more harm.
What do you think about, like, recently there's been a lot of studies talking about children with ADHD are over-medicated?
I definitely think that is an issue, because a lot of times I've noticed, like I was watching, have you ever seen Super Nanny? Yeah. I watched she had a newer series come out, and there was a girl that was on there, and she would be, she just had really intense outbursts, and her parents were like, I think she has ADHD. Anytime any child shows some sign of aggression or overactivity, they immediately jump to it's ADHD. I think that's where, it's important to have these people like Dr. Scott and other doctors and stuff really educate. It's important for them because they help educate the parents that even, like, all children are going to be hyperactive, and all children are going to run around and scream and, have intense outbursts. Like, I had intense outbursts all the time. But I do have ADHD, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single child does.
Do you think there's kids getting overdiagnosed?
I think so. Yeah, I think there might be a lot of kids that get overdiagnosed because, again, like I said, parents jump to the conclusion of, oh, my child, goes, especially now that there's Google and everything, they'd be like, oh, my child is, this is what my child is presenting. And I'm sure Google or whoever, whatever else is out there is like, oh, your child probably has ADHD. And that probably adds fuel to the fire. And they're like, well, we need to get them to a doctor and get them medicated.
Do you think maybe social media has helped that at all with just more awareness or people being able to connect?
I definitely think it's helped. But just like anything on social media, it's also kind of hindered it a little bit because I didn't know about this because I was not allowed on social media until very recently. But I learned about this in my English class last year, is that people would get on TikTok and they would say, oh, I'm neurodivergent, I have disabilities. And, it would turn out that they didn't, and that they just used it to be seen as like trendy, which is not something anybody should do, irregardless of, just as a general fact, nothing should be taken and seen as trendy.
How did that make you feel?
That definitely made me feel really upset, especially because, like I said, I got picked on a lot, and people would call me inappropriate words, and they would be mean to me and push me around and stuff like that. It definitely it made me feel upset because here they are glorifying it, saying like, oh, I live a day-to-day life with this disability, and it just doesn't really show the full picture. And it gives people a distorted view because now, especially now, when I see actual people with disabilities on TikTok and stuff, or on Instagram or anything like that, people are always like, oh, you're faking it, or, oh, you're doing this for views, because they see all these other people who are doing it.
Have you felt represented by any specific like movie or show or anything?
But when I wasn't outdoors, I was reading. I loved to read. That was one thing that was always my strength growing up. I was always reading. When I was in 7th grade, and I had a really great relationship with my librarian, and I remember coming to her and being like, I don't really feel like a lot of people understand me because I'm neurodivergent, and a lot of people don't understand what I go through. And, when I read these books, all these kids seem quote unquote normal and seem like nothing impacts them. And she introduced me to, I did like to read when I was younger, but never after I found Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan. And I think that's definitely also great representation too, because he wrote that for his son who has ADHD and dyslexia. He would used to read his son stories about Greek myths, and his son would tell him, I wish I could be like them. Like, they seem cool and there's nothing wrong with them. And after he heard that, he was inspired. And so he wrote the books for that. And I definitely feel like that's good representation, especially now. Like, recently they came out with a show on Disney Plus. So there's that show. And I think it's really important for people because I know the books really helped kids who did have neurodivergence and who were neurodivergent, and a lot of kids credit that book for teaching them. A lot of neurotypical kids were like, oh yeah, I wouldn't know about this stuff if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to add or talk about?
I wish there would be more talk about it in a professional field, because I don't think I've ever heard of somebody who is neurodivergent and has like a doctorate or is running things, or is an entrepreneur. I think, it'd be great if there was more talk about it in higher fields. But I wish there was more things of like people who were out there doing day-to-day life and having a high degree or having something important or something like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me and Emma on Wired Differently Inside the Neurodivergent Mind, and listen to this podcast for more episodes.